My brother inherited the family business, failed miserably, and now they want me to work for free. I'm 33, male, and honestly, I never expected my life to get so tangled up in my family's mess again. I thought I was done with it all. But here we are. Let me start from the top. My dad built a manufacturing company from scratch. Nothing big, but it paid the bills and then some. Growing up, it was the family's identity. You know how it goes: blood, sweat, and tears go into something, and suddenly it's a legacy. My older brother M was always the one they were grooming to take over. He went to business school, shook hands with all the right people, and he wore that "I'm next in line" look on his face for years. Me, I was the second kid, the artsy one. I never had any illusions that I'd be running the family business, and I was okay with that. I've always been a bit of a black sheep taking a different route. No one ever asked me if I wanted to be involved, and I didn't ask either. It was just kind of understood that M would get everything, and 3 years ago, that's exactly what happened. My dad handed him the company, no conversation with me, not even a token offer. I was at the dinner table one day, and suddenly my brother is the king of the castle, and I'm sitting there with a fork in my hand like a stranger in my own family. But I didn't say a word. I didn't want the business anyway, right? So I let it go. Easier to stay quiet than to fight over something I didn't want in the first place. Now here's where it gets good. Fast forward to now, and the company's tanking. M took over, made all the wrong calls, bad deals, dumb investments, you name it. And in 2 years, he's run Dad's pride and joy into the ground. And what do you think happens? Do they hold him accountable? No. They're still treating him like he walks on water. Meanwhile, I've been minding my own business, working my steady job, watching from the sidelines as the whole thing falls apart. Then last month at one of our awkward family dinners, they spring this on me. I'm sitting there chewing through a dry piece of chicken, and my dad clears his throat, the same way he did whenever he was about to lay something heavy on us. "We need to talk," he says, glancing over at M, who's staring at his plate like it's got all the answers. I already knew where this was going, but I played along. "Okay, what's up?" My mom jumped in like she was softening the blow. "M's been having a tough time with the business, and we were thinking maybe you could help out." I stared at her for a second, then looked at M. He couldn't even meet my eyes. "You want me to help him with the business?" "Well, yeah," my dad said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You've got good people skills, and the company could really use some new ideas. You two working together could turn things around." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And how much are you planning to pay me for this?" Silence. "We were hoping," my mom said cautiously, "that you'd be willing to do this as family. Help out without worrying about the money part." I had to laugh. I couldn't help it. I leaned back in my chair and let it out, loud and bitter. They all just sat there, staring at me like I was the crazy one. "Let me get this straight," I said, still chuckling. "You want me to come in and clean up his mess for free?" "It's not like that," my dad said, clearly annoyed. "We're family. We're supposed to help each other out." I looked at him, then at M, who was still avoiding eye contact. "Help each other out? When the hell did any of you help me out? You handed him the business without even thinking about me. And now that he's trashed it, I'm supposed to jump in and save the day? For nothing? That's not fair," my mom cut in. "We didn't mean to make you feel left out. M was just better suited for it, and you didn't seem interested." "Yeah, and I wasn't," I shot back. "But that's not the point. The point is, you didn't even ask me. You gave him everything and left me with nothing. And now that he's screwed up, you want me to fix it for free. Do you even hear yourselves?" M finally spoke up, sounding defensive. "I didn't ask for this, okay? I didn't ask for things to go wrong. But things happen, and I'm doing my best. I just need some help." I turned to him, shaking my head. "You don't need help. You need someone to clean up your mess for you. And I'm not your guy." "We're not asking you to take over," my dad said, his voice tight. "Just to give your brother a hand." "A hand?" I scoffed. "No, what you want is a free employee. You didn't give me a stake in the business. But now you want me to do the dirty work. That's not how this works." M finally looked at me. "You've always been bitter, haven't you? That's why you're acting like this. Because you didn't get the business." I stood up, the anger boiling over. "You think I'm bitter? You ran Dad's company into the ground because you're a cocky idiot. And now you want me to come in and play hero because you can't handle the pressure. That's not bitterness. That's me knowing my worth, which is clearly more than any of you ever gave me credit for. That's enough." My dad barked, standing up too. This isn't about who's right or wrong. This is about the family business, about keeping the family together. I grabbed my jacket and started heading for the door. You know what? You can keep your family. I don't owe you anything. I walked out, leaving them sitting there in stunned silence. As soon as I got home, I felt this rush of relief. I was done. Done being the backup plan, done being the guy they only called when they needed something. I wasn't going to let them guilt me into fixing their mess. I deserved better. A week later, M called me. I wasn't going to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. We talked it over, he said, his voice strained, and we're willing to offer you a small percentage of the business if you help out. Like 5%. I laughed into the phone. Are you serious? You think 5% is going to get me to drop everything and come save your ass? It's more than you had before, he said, like he was doing me a favor. I could feel my blood boiling. More than I had before? You're seriously offering me a sliver of the thing you got handed on a silver platter? No, man, I'm not playing this game with you. Come on. I go to hell, M. I hung up the phone and didn't look back. But that wasn't the end of it. A couple days later, my mom called crying. She said if something didn't change, they'd have to sell the business. She laid it on thick about how hard Dad worked to build it, how proud he'd been of it, how it was his legacy. It's not my problem. You don't mean that, she sobbed, trying to guilt me into caving. I do mean it. You and Dad made your choice. You chose M. Now you have to live with that. For a while after that, the call stopped. I thought maybe they'd finally gotten the message. But M showed up at my apartment one night, looking like absolute hell. I almost didn't let him in, but part of me was curious to see what he'd say. I'll give you more than 5%, he said. Name your number. I looked him up and down, my anger simmering just below the surface. You really think this is about money? You think you can buy my help? M looked desperate. I'm just trying to fix things. Fix things? I scoffed. You can't fix anything. You're just trying to drag me down with you. No deal. He stood there for a minute, like he couldn't believe I'd actually say no. Then he just nodded, turned around, and left. That was the last time I saw him. The business was sold a few months later. I heard through the grapevine that my parents were devastated. My dad had to swallow his pride and sell off the company he'd spent his whole life building because M couldn't hack it. And you know what? He didn't got it. Not anymore. A couple of months after the sale, my dad called. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me just wanted to hear what he had to say. He started, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. Your mom, and we wanted to talk. About what? About everything, he said, sighing deeply. The business, the way we treated you. We were wrong. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, holding the phone. We were wrong to treat you the way we did, my dad continued. We should have included you from the start. We made a mistake. I'm sorry. I let the words hang in the air for a moment, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to yell at him, unload all the years of frustration, but I didn't. Instead, I just said, I appreciate that, Dad, but it's too late. I understand, he replied, his voice strained. I just wanted you to know. We sat in silence for a few seconds before I hung up. I didn't feel triumphant or angry, just done. The kind of done where you finally realize you're free of someone else's weight. In the end, M moved away, and my parents stopped calling me for favors. The family business was gone, but I had my peace. It wasn't the closure I expected, but it was the one I needed. So, to anyone out there dealing with entitled family members or people trying to use you, don't let them. You don't owe anyone your time or energy. Walk away when you need to. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My brother totaled my car without permission, and when my parents defended him, I sued him and refused to back down. I'm a 29-year-old guy with an ordinary life. I work in tech, live in a small apartment, and for better or worse, I have a family that I can only describe as complicated. By complicated, I mean my parents treat my older brother like he walks on water, and me like I'm just the guy who fixes their computer. He's the golden child, no matter what he does. He could punch a wall in anger, and my parents would ask if he'd hurt his hand. Meanwhile, I'm the responsible one, the one who's supposed to keep everything together. I've been okay with it for years, just dealt with it. This story isn't just about my car. It's about how this family stuff finally broke me. See, I just bought my first car. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was new, and it was mine. I'd saved for years to buy it, an actual symbol of my independence. We still drove a car our parents had bought him, even though he dinged it up from driving like a maniac. So when I got that car, it felt like a milestone, something I'd earned myself. One night, I went downstairs to grab something from my car, maybe double check something I left in there. When I got to the lot, it wasn't there. I circled around a few times, thinking I must have parked it somewhere else. But no, it was gone. I was about to call the cops when my phone buzzed with a text from E. Borrowed your car, had to run some errands, chill. I'll have it back soon. That's when I lost it. He hadn't asked. He hadn't even left me a heads up. Just took it. I called him, and he picked up on the third ring, like he hadn't just stolen my car. What the hell? You can't just take my car without asking. I spat. Chill out. He laughed like I was overreacting. I was just taking it for a spin. What's the big deal? You know I'd never mess with your precious little car. But he did. 2 hours later, he called again. This time, there was no chill in his voice. Hey, don't freak out, but there was a bit of an accident. Bit of an accident? I repeated, feeling my blood pressure spike. What the hell did you do? It's not my fault, okay, he said, sounding genuinely annoyed, like I was the one putting him out. The road was slick, and this truck swerved, so I tried to get out of the way. Anyway, the car's kind of wrecked, but insurance will cover it, right? My insurance? I was practically yelling. That's not how insurance works. You're not on my policy. Relax, don't be so uptight, he replied, as if I was just nitpicking. It's just a car. You'll get over it. The knot twisted in my stomach as I rushed to where he'd abandoned it. The front was smashed, the headlights were gone, and the whole hood looked like it had been through a blender. Totaled. I could tell from the way he left it. He'd been speeding. This wasn't a bit of an accident. I called my parents, hoping maybe finally they'd back me up. I explained everything, expecting at least some anger on my behalf. But the response I got made me feel like I was the crazy one. Well, it's just a car, my dad said. Maybe he just made a mistake. Dad, he crashed it without permission. Now I'm stuck paying because insurance won't cover it. My mom cut in with that dismissive, placating tone she always used when it was E in trouble. He's your brother, honey. Family sticks together, you'll figure something out. Figure something out? I was trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't even apologize. He thinks I'm the one overreacting. My dad sighed like I was some petulant kid. Family is family, son. You don't want to destroy your relationship with E over a car. It was like every time before, but so much worse. Made it feel like I was the one causing trouble. Thought of suing, he came to me then, but I pushed it aside. I knew what my parents would think of that. I'd be the villain. As the days passed, he didn't just fail to make things right. He rubbed it in. When I asked if he'd even consider helping pay me back in installments, he laughed. What, you think I'm made of money? Come on, man. Don't be a prick, it's just a car. The worst part, my parents still backed him up every single time. He shrugged it off, acted like I was the one making a big deal out of nothing. It was the final straw. This wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about boundaries, respect. The fact that my family would always choose E over me. I had to stand up for myself, even if it meant pushing back against every expectation they'd set for me. So I did it. I filed a lawsuit. I wasn't playing nice anymore. When he received the notice, he showed up at my apartment, hammering on the door, demanding answers. He looked genuinely furious, like I was the one who'd wronged him. What the hell are you thinking? He said, his face twisted with entitlement. I gave you every chance to make this right, he said, meeting his glare. You didn't even offer to pay me back. You took my car like it was yours, and you don't care about the damage. He scoffed, throwing his hands up. You're just jealous because mom and dad actually care about me. That's what this is about, isn't it? Finally said everything I'd bottled up for years. Told him how sick I was of being treated like I didn't matter. He just stood there stunned as I listed every time he'd gotten away with everything, while I'd been left to fend for myself. It was like talking to a wall. Nothing got through to him. Then came the dirty tricks. The parents went from just disappointed to actively trying to destroy my case. They called every family member, every family friend, and everyone who knew us, painting me as the ungrateful son. Soon, aunts, uncles, and cousins were calling to tell me how disrespectful I was being, how I was betraying my own family over a little accident. Then my mom took it up a notch. She showed up at my workplace. My job is pretty quiet, so to see my mom barging and looking furious was mortifying. He demanded we talk right there in front of my colleagues. My boss called me aside afterward, genuinely concerned, asking if everything was okay. I was humiliated, but I knew exactly why she'd done it. To embarrass me, to make me look like the unstable one. When that didn't work, it went deeper. Suddenly, I got a call from my landlord that my rent check had bounced. I'd set up direct deposit, and I knew I had the funds. When I checked my bank, I found that my parents had accessed an old college account we still shared, siphoning off a chunk of my savings without asking. I confronted them. My dad didn't even flinch. He only took what you didn't need. He said, "You'll thank us one day. Maybe this is the wake-up call you need." He told me they'd return the money if I dropped the lawsuit. I was beyond furious. It was clear to me they'd go to any lengths to protect E and keep me from getting justice. And he decided to take it even further. A week later, I got served with papers. Filed a counterclaim, claiming I'd harassed him over the lawsuit. Document was packed with lies. He alleged I'd sent him abusive messages, that I'd threatened him, even that I'd created a hostile environment for him. It was obvious what he was doing, trying to force me to settle, make the whole ordeal so draining and costly that I'd just give up. My lawyer advised me to consider settling, pointing out that the counterclaim could drag on for months. I was too angry to back down. Couldn't let he get away with this. As the court date approached, my dad made one last desperate move. He invited me over for a family dinner, saying he wanted to settle things peacefully. I went mostly out of curiosity. Maybe I thought they'd finally see sense. Maybe they'd finally hear me out. When I arrived, they'd laid out my favorite meal. For a second, it felt like a real family dinner. Like they'd set all this aside and actually listened to me. Then my dad slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a family contract they'd drawn up. Documents stated that if I agreed to drop the lawsuit, he would work off the debt in vague terms that meant nothing. It was filled with loopholes and vague promises. Just an attempt to trick me into a settlement that they'd never actually honor. When I refused to sign, my dad's calm facade crumbled. He exploded, telling me I was cold-hearted and that I was cold-hearted and that I'd never understand the importance of family. He was yelling now, his voice shaking with anger. My mom was sitting beside him, nodding along like she agreed with every word, like they were united in their anger against me. Their own son. "You're betraying us over a damn car. You realize that," he hissed. "All this over one little mistake. You're pathetic." Just sat there across from me, arms crossed with this smug grin on his face, watching the whole thing unfold. Didn't say a word, didn't apologize. Just sat there, enjoying watching them try to break me down on his behalf. "I'm betraying you." Shot back, trying to keep my voice steady. "He stole from me. He wrecked my car and laughed about it. Now you're acting like I'm the villain because I'm asking him to take responsibility." My dad laughed, his cold, dismissive sound. "Responsibility? You have no idea what that word means, do you? He has been there for this family always. He's never turned his back on us like you are now. Maybe we just raised you too soft." Too soft? I couldn't believe it. They were treating me like I was the one who'd screwed up, like I was the one who'd crossed the line. My voice started to rise. "I'm the one who's always been there, doing everything by the book while he's gotten away with everything. And I'm done with it." He didn't even flinch. My mom looked at me with this sad, pitying expression, like she was disappointed in me, but still loved me in her own twisted way. "Honey," she said softly, "you're throwing away your family over something so small. This isn't worth losing us over. Drop this, please, before it's too late." I looked at them all, my family, the people who were supposed to have my back. But they didn't, they never had. And in that moment, I realized they never would. So I stood up, took a deep breath, and said, I'm not the one who's throwing anything away. You did that a long time ago. And I walked out. Court date finally came, and I could feel their eyes on me as I testified. My parents were there, sitting on E's side, glaring at me like I was some kind of traitor. E's counterclaim was quickly dismissed by the judge as baseless, and I watched the color drain from his face as the verdict was handed down. He had to pay every cent for the damages, plus a little extra for dragging things out. I didn't get an apology, not from me, not from my parents. They cut me off after that, told the whole family I was ungrateful, that I'd abandoned them for money. I got calls from aunts, uncles, cousins, all telling me how disappointed they were, how they couldn't believe I'd done this to my own brother. You know what? I don't regret it. For the first time, I stood up for myself, stopped playing the role of the family doormat, and I've been better off ever since. I realized family isn't about blood. It's about respect, about loyalty that goes both ways. And if they couldn't give me that, they weren't family at all. Anyone who's stuck in a family that doesn't respect you, who thinks you're supposed to sacrifice everything to keep them happy, stand your ground. You deserve better. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My brother tried to destroy my wedding with lies, so I exposed the truth he's been hiding for years. I'm 29 male, and my wedding day was supposed to be the best day of my life. At least, that's what I'd been telling myself. I'd found someone I truly loved, T, and I was ready to start a life with her. But I should have known deep down that my older brother, was going to find a way to ruin it. He's always been the golden child. You know the type, the one who can do no wrong in our parents' eyes, the one they always shielded from any consequence. I tolerated it growing up. I stayed in the shadows, let him take the spotlight, because I figured that's just how it was. He was the charmer, the straight-A student, the star athlete. Me? I was just me. I got by, tried to avoid drama, but M was always there, making sure I never had anything for myself. And that included my wedding. From the second I introduced T to my family, M had something to say. It was like he made it his mission to undermine everything about our relationship. You sure she's with you for the right reasons, bro? Or man, she's out of your league. Must be a catch somewhere. He'd say it like it was a joke, like he was just messing around. But I knew better. He wasn't joking. T would just smile, brush it off. She was strong, stronger than I was when it came to M's bullshit. But I could see it wearing on her. And honestly, it wore on me too. I'd let him get away with so much over the years. But this was different. This was my wife. The wedding started off fine. The ceremony was beautiful. T looked incredible. And for a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe M would behave himself. But of course, that was too much to ask. The reception is where it all went to hell. M had been drinking since the morning, but it wasn't like anyone stopped him. Why would they? M could do no wrong, right? He grabbed the mic during the speeches, completely uninvited. I knew immediately it was going to be bad. My stomach dropped as soon as I saw him stumble up there, slurring already. All right, everyone, let's give it up for my little bro and his lovely bride. M started, raising his glass and grinning like a jackass. People clapped, but it was awkward. There was this tension in the air. Everyone could feel it, except M. Or maybe he felt it, but didn't care. He turned to T, his grin widening. T-man, you really scored big with my brother. Guess you figured out the perfect way to lock him down, huh? I saw T tense up beside me. She smiled, but I could tell she was trying not to lose it. I felt my blood boiling, but I kept quiet. I didn't want to make a scene. I hoped M would just stop. But no, he was only getting started. You know, he said, pausing for dramatic effect, T, and I go way back. The room fell silent. My heart stopped. Where the hell was he going with this? M chuckled like he was letting everyone in on some private joke. Yeah, she probably doesn't want me to mention it, but we met before my bro got lucky with her. In a professional setting, if you know what I mean. There was a stunned silence followed by a ripple of gasps from the crowd. My head started spinning. I saw T's face turn white, her hands trembling as she clutched her napkin. She looked at me, eyes wide, pleading silently for me to do something. But I was frozen. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Em was loving it. He grinned at me, swaying slightly. Oh, you didn't know? Bro thought she would have told you about her other job before you tied the knot. I stood up, rage surging through me. Shut the hell up, Em. What the hell are you talking about? Em shrugged, still smirking. Just telling the truth. You should know who you're marrying, right? I mean, everyone's seen her around. She's got a reputation, bro. You son of a... I took a step toward him. Fists clenched, but T grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face. Stop, she whispered, shaking her head. Please don't. I felt like I was going to explode. The room was dead silent. Everyone watching, waiting for the train wreck to unfold. I looked around, searching for some kind of support. But my parents? My dad just sat there, staring at the table like none of this was happening. My mom glanced between me and Em, looking uncomfortable, but saying nothing. Of course, they wouldn't intervene. Em was untouchable. Why are you doing this? I shouted, voice cracking. Why the hell would you humiliate us like this on my wedding day? Em laughed, actually laughed, like I was the crazy one. Humiliate? Nah, man. I'm just looking out for you. You're always too trusting. Bro thought you deserved to know who you're really marrying. That's when I snapped. You think you're so perfect, don't you? I snarled, stepping closer to him. Always acting like you're better than everyone. But guess what, Em? You're a fucking fraud. Em's grin faltered for the first time, his eyes narrowing. What the hell are you talking about? I didn't even hesitate. Remember that stolen car? The one you crashed when you were 22? Or did you forget that Dad had to pay off the cops to make sure you didn't get thrown in jail for nearly killing someone? The air was sucked out of the room. Em's face went pale. He opened his mouth to say something, but I wasn't done. Yeah, that's right, I continued, voice rising. You stole a car, got drunk, and crashed it into a fucking tree. And you would have gone to prison if it wasn't for Dad bailing your ass out. But you never faced any consequences, did you? Because you're the golden child. Em can do no wrong, right? I glanced around the room, locking eyes with my parents. My dad looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. My mom? She wouldn't even meet my gaze. Typical. You've always been a screw-up, Em, I spat. But no one ever holds you accountable. You just keep getting away with everything while the rest of us clean up your mess. But not anymore. You want to drag my wife's name through the mud? Fine, but we're not playing by your rules anymore. M's hands were clenched into fists now, his face red with rage. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Oh, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I shot back. And so does everyone here know. You're not some fucking saint, Em. You're a lying, entitled prick who's been handed everything his whole life. And you think you can just stun people because no one ever calls you out. Well, guess what? I'm calling you out. The silence was deafening. M stood there, shaking, but he didn't say anything. He couldn't. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. I turned to T, who was still trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. I wrapped my arm around her and whispered, "Let's get out of here." We left. We didn't even stay for the rest of the reception. I couldn't. Not after that. We walked out of the venue hand in hand, and I didn't look back. In the weeks after, everything fell apart for M. People started talking. Whispers about his past, about the stolen car, about how our parents had covered up for him his whole life. He tried to spin it, tried to make himself the victim, but no one was buying it. His golden boy image was shattered, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel some satisfaction in that. As for me and T, it took time, but we're rebuilding. She was hurt, humiliated, but she's strong. Stronger than anyone gives her credit for. We moved on. We had to. Em and I, we don't talk anymore. I don't think we ever will again. And honestly, I'm fine with that. He crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Family or not, I won't tolerate that kind of toxicity in my life anymore. So yeah, that's how my brother tried to destroy my wedding and my wife, and how I finally stood up to him. If you've got a toxic family member like that, my advice? Don't let them keep pushing you down. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My brother stole our family business and kicked me out. Now their company is failing, and I refuse to save them. I'm 36, male, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. But here we are. My family ran a business, one of those old school operations where everyone is expected to get involved, whether you like it or not. My dad started it before I was even born, worked his ass off to make it successful. By the time I was old enough to understand, it was drilled into me that this business was my future. My parents made sure of that. They said it was for the family. After college, I jumped in, did my part. I studied business, so it seemed natural. I didn't mind working long hours, making sure everything ran smoothly. I knew I'd eventually help take over, but I wasn't in a hurry. My younger brother, R, was a different story. 3 years younger and always the golden child. Charming, talkative, you know the type. He didn't even care about the business at first, wanted to do his own thing, art, music, whatever phase he was in that year. Eventually, R hit a rough patch, and surprise, he joined the business too. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was happy for the help, and hell, maybe he'd bring a new perspective. But then things started to change, slowly but surely. It wasn't long before I was spending a lot of time alone with our parents. Decisions were being made that I wasn't part of. At first, I didn't think too much of it. We were family, right? No reason to suspect anything. But one day, after a long meeting, my dad asked me to stay back. The look on his face? Cold, unfamiliar. He told me flat out that they decided I was going to take the lead going forward. What? I asked, completely caught off guard. You're too rigid, he said, like he was just giving me a simple fact. Ours got new ideas, and we need that kind of innovation to move forward. Rigid? Me? I've been running the damn day-to-day for years, keeping this place afloat. I had been there 5 minutes, and suddenly I was the problem. It didn't sit right, but I didn't argue too much. Not then, anyway. It was just the beginning. A few months later, they called me into the office again. This time, I was sitting there, smirking like he had won something. My father didn't waste time. We think it's best if you step away for a while, he said, his tone so matter-of-fact it made my stomach turn. Step away? I asked. What the hell are you talking about? We want her to take the lead without any conflict, my mother added, her voice sickly sweet. You've been so stressed lately. This could be good for you, to take a break. A break? They were kicking me out. I stared at them, trying to process what they were saying. I had been here since day one, putting in more hours than anyone else, and now they wanted me gone. For R's sake, because he might feel conflicted having to deal with me. It was bullshit, but that wasn't even the worst part. No, the worst part was when they tried to get me to sell my stake in the company to them for less than what it was worth. Way less. Just take the offer, my dad said, like it was no big deal. We're family, it'll give you some cash, and you can go do whatever you want. You want me to sell my share for this? I pointed at the number on the contract they slid across the table. It wasn't just insulting, it was robbery. It's fair, given the circumstances, or chimed in, still smiling like a smug little prick. I should have fought harder. I should have told them to go to hell and walked out. But in the moment, I was too stunned, too blindsided by the whole thing. After all those years of loyalty and hard work, my own family was cutting me loose. And for what? To protect R's ego? To clear the way for his so-called innovation? I signed the papers, walked out of that meeting, and for a few weeks, I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. I'd built my entire life around that company. Now what? That's when the call came in. It was from a small rival company. Let's call them G Corporation. They weren't on our level, not even close, but they had always been trying to chip away at our market. They offered me a job, just a regular executive position. At first, I wasn't interested. After everything that had just happened, the idea of going to work for someone else felt wrong. But then I thought about it some more. Why not partner with them? I had the experience, the connections. If my family didn't value what I brought to the table, maybe someone else would. I met with the owners of G Corp, and after a few meetings, I made my pitch. I wouldn't just work for them. I'd come on as a partner. I even threw in some of my savings, a small investment. They agreed. I wasn't going to just sit on the sidelines. If my family didn't want me, I'd make sure their competition did. It wasn't easy at first. The company was small. and we were up against a giant. But I worked my ass off, just like I always had. And slowly, we started to make progress. Little by little, we gained ground. By year 5, something incredible happened. We overtook them. My family's business started losing customers. Nothing huge at first, but steady. Then, after 2 years of losses, things really started to fall apart for them. And the best part? I had no clue how to fix it. For a while, my parents stayed out of it. They had retired after pushing me out, leaving R to run the show. But as the losses piled up, my dad couldn't ignore it any longer. He came out of retirement to help. But by then, it was too late. R had already done so much damage. Turns out, he wasn't the genius my parents thought he was. Sure, things had gone well for the first couple of years. But that wasn't because of him. It was the employees, the reputation the company already had. But eventually, even that wasn't enough. Then came the day I had been waiting for. My father called. "We need to talk," he said, his voice tight with frustration. I met him at the office. My father, my mother, and I were all there. It felt like a setup, like some kind of twisted intervention. They tried to make it sound like they were asking for my input. But I knew what this was. They needed me to come back. "We could really use your expertise," my father said. "You've always been good with numbers. And we're in a bit of a situation." A bit of a situation? That was an understatement. They were bleeding money, losing clients, and their reputation was circling the drain. My mother tried to play the guilt card. "This is your family's legacy, You can't just watch it fall apart." "I already watched you let it fall apart," I said, leaning back in my chair. "You're just noticing now. You're making this personal or cut in. It's business. We need your help to turn this around." I looked at R, the same guy who had sat there while they kicked me out, grinning like he'd won. Now, he wanted my help? "No," I said, plain and simple. My father's face went pale. My mother's eyes widened like she couldn't believe what I was saying. But I wasn't done. "You kicked me out when it suited you," I continued. "You wanted her to run things, so you cut me loose. Now, you're losing, and you think I'm just going to swoop in and save the day? We'll make it right," my dad said quickly. "You can have your share back. We'll even give you a bigger stake." I stood up, done with the conversation. "I don't need your shares. I don't need any of it. I built something better without you, and I'm not coming back." They sat there in stunned silence as I walked out. I could hear my mother muttering something under her breath, probably some self-righteous comment about loyalty, but I didn't care. I wasn't coming back, and that was that. Over the next few weeks, they tried everything. They sent texts, made phone calls, even had my aunt reach out, trying to guilt me into helping. My mom was the worst, calling me ungrateful, saying I owed them for everything they'd done for me. "You wouldn't have gotten anywhere without us," she said over the phone one night. "This is your family. You owe us that much." I didn't owe them a damn thing. They made their choice when they pushed me out. Now, they were reaping the consequences, and honestly, it felt good, watching their empire crumble, knowing they had to sit there and watch while I succeeded on my own terms. The rival company I partnered with, we're thriving. We've expanded, and we're now a major player in the industry. As for my family's business, they're still struggling, and they can keep struggling. I'm not coming back. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one. My brother faked evidence to save his wife after she stole my earrings and assaulted me. Now, I pay them back. I'm a 26-year-old woman with a younger brother, David, who's 3 years younger than me. Growing up, he was always the golden child of the family. Our parents constantly took his side, no matter what he did. They believe his lies and brush off his mistakes with excuses like, "Everyone makes mistakes sometimes," or "He's still young, he needs to learn." Meanwhile, I was always the one cleaning up his messes. Last year, he got caught on camera stealing beer from a supermarket. Guess who had to bail him out and pay for the damages? Me, of course. And then he met Emily, a kind of person who would do anything to be the center of attention, especially during celebrations. She was obsessed with making everything bigger and better than anyone else's events. Think of her as a wannabe Kardashian without the bank account to match. She and David were constantly living way beyond their means. When she started planning their wedding reception, you'd think she was organizing the Met Gala. She had to have the most stunning venue, the most expensive flowers, and top-tier catering. regardless of cost. Emily was notorious for maxing out credit cards and taking out loans just to keep up appearances. Even though David knew they were drowning in debt, he kept enabling her expensive tastes. He'd always had terrible judgment when it came to women, consistently dating girls who cared more about designer bags than genuine connections. Emily was just the latest in this pattern. All surface charm, but empty underneath. David saw the red flags but chose to ignore them, probably because he didn't think he could do better. At first, I thought things would be fine between Emily and me. We were cordial, though not close. No fights, no drama, just neutral. Man, I was wrong. Everything changed during a family party. While getting ready, I discovered my great-grandmother's earrings were missing. These weren't just any earrings. They were a family heirloom passed down to the firstborn child, which was me. I never wore them because they were too precious, but now they were gone. I found every corner in my room, but still did not find it. So, I decided to take out the security camera that I kept in my room. What I saw made my blood boil. There was Emily, sneaking into my room, rifling through my drawers, and taking the earrings. I confronted her immediately about how she stole from me. My brother was the first to respond that she did it for a good cause. I asked what this cause was, and she said she pawned them so they could have more money for the wedding. I lost it. I called her a thieving butch and told my parents, who were staying silent, to call the cops as I would press charges. But over my expectation, my sister-in-law walked over and slapped me. She yelled, "Don't you dare to do that." I pulled out my phone to call anyway. She then grabbed my hair and screamed. She even picked up a glass and smashed it over my head, causing red to start pouring out of me. While this was happening, I saw my mother in the living room dialing 911. The police arrived quickly, and when they saw my wounds, they asked what was going on. I started explaining to the police what had happened, but Emily tried every trick in the book, crying, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, saying I had given her permission to take the earrings. This got the cops suspicious, and they asked to see the footage. When they saw it, they didn't need much more convincing. Emily was arrested right then and there in front of the entire family. After Emily got arrested, David reacted exactly as expected. That very night, he bailed her out of jail without hesitation. It didn't matter to him that Emily had betrayed the family's trust. David came to me later that night, furious. He accused, "You're overreacting. You blew everything out of proportion. The earrings aren't worth much anyway." He also said Emily is desperate because we need money for our wedding reception, and it's not a big deal since she is now part of the family, and she has every right to have those earrings. The earrings weren't about the money, David. They're about family. I was heartbroken that my own brother couldn't see why this hurt me so much. On top of that, she assaulted me. And she's lucky I'm only pressing charges for the theft and not for that too. Instead of understanding, however, he started spinning the situation in his favor, telling the family I was being dramatic, that I'd always been jealous of Emily, and that I was just trying to start drama. He even had the nerve to tell some of our extended family that I had given Emily the earrings as a wedding gift. My parents, who had been so supportive at the beginning, started to question everything. He played the loyal husband card, saying he was just standing up for his wife. A few days later, my phone rang, and I saw it was my mom. I almost didn't pick up. I knew exactly what was coming, but I did. I could hear the exhaustion in her voice the second she started talking. First, there was that hesitant small talk, the kind where you can tell they're just trying to find the right moment to bring up the real reason for the call. Finally, she got to it and told me she had talked to David and that he had told her the truth. She said it was really disappointing to hear, and the situation upset all of them. I didn't say anything, just let her talk. I knew David had gotten to her. I could already tell from the tone of her voice that she believed him, or at least enough of his side to think I had some responsibility in all of this. She kept going, "I think you should apologize to Emily. Maybe you're wrong. And if your behavior is still like this, you'll destroy this family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apologize to Emily for getting slapped and having a glass broken over me after I confronted her for stealing from me, for her selling our family heirloom. My chest tightened as I realized what this was really about. My mom wasn't thinking about me. She was thinking about how all of this looked. I couldn't believe it. My own family was turning against me, all because of my brother's lies. I was heartbroken. That's when I decided to press charges. If my family wanted to enable Emily's behavior, fine, but I wasn't going to let them gaslight me into thinking I was wrong. David immediately went on the offensive, telling anyone who would listen that I was just jealous and bitter about being single while he had found happiness. According to him, that's why I was making a big deal out of a pair of earrings. I heard through the family grapevine that he'd been calling up relatives and told them that I got Emily put in jail because I couldn't fathom my younger brother marrying someone as good as Emily since I hadn't met my person yet. He painted me as some kind of greedy, vengeful sister who couldn't stand to see him happy. It didn't take long for people to start believing his lies. Suddenly, family members who had been supportive started questioning me, asking if maybe I was being too harsh and if pressing charges was really necessary. I knew I couldn't face this legal battle alone, so I hired a lawyer, thinking the case would be straightforward with the security footage and proof of the pawned earrings. But David took things to another level. As soon as the legal process began, David started working to sabotage me. My lawyer informed me that David had gone a step further. He was bribing people, trying to get them to testify against me. He paid off a couple of distant family members to say that they had heard me say I didn't care about the earrings and that I had casually handed them over to Emily as a gift for her wedding. It was a complete lie, but the sheer audacity of it left me reeling. He did everything in his power to discredit me. The people he bribed were willing to go on record and speak false testimonies that threatened to weaken my entire case. It didn't take long for my lawyer to pick up on the fact that something wasn't right. The worst came when David submitted supposed evidence to the court and fabricated text messages between me and Emily. My lawyer showed me the screenshots, and I felt my stomach drop. They looked like something I might have actually sent. In the messages, it seemed like I was telling Emily she could borrow the earrings whenever she wanted. One of the texts even went as far as to say, "You can keep them if you like." I had no idea how David had managed to create something like this, but it was clear he was going to stop at nothing to protect Emily. But it didn't stop there. My lawyer managed to track down one of the relatives who came to testify, and they admitted, off the record, that David had pressured them to lie. He'd paid them to say that I didn't care about the earrings, that I had practically handed them over to Emily without a second thought. On the day of the trial, the air felt thick. I entered the courtroom, knowing this was the moment when everything would come to light. My lawyer presented our case. He showed the security footage of Emily sneaking into the room, the documents proving the sale of the earrings, and all the evidence of her theft. But then, as the witnesses were called to the stand, David's plan began to unravel. The first witness was a distant cousin. Under the pressure of cross-examination, our cousin admitted David had paid him to lie. Then a family friend confessed to being bribed. The expert testimony proved the text messages were fake, and suddenly David was being led out in handcuffs for tampering with evidence and witness tampering. His desperate attempts to control the situation had collapsed entirely, now left to face the consequences alone. Emily was convicted of theft, and I was awarded the full value of the earrings. But that wasn't all. The trial revealed that my brother and parents had been hiding my grandmother's inheritance from me. There was a trust fund in my name that David had been managing, meaning spending on himself and Emily. My parents, who had taken David and Emily's side, had to face the fact that they had been backing the wrong people. Walking out of that courtroom and seeing my mom's face absolutely wrecked me. For months, she'd been the one trying to keep everything together. When Emily went to jail after the fight, my mom was more worried about saving face than anything else. But seeing her now, after David got arrested for everything he'd done, hit me hard. She looked like she'd been gutted. She'd been holding on to this hope that things could go back to normal. But now, with David being led away in handcuffs, she was staring down the fact that her son was actually going to prison. I couldn't help but feel bad for her. Once the legal dust settled, the trust was finally transferred over to me. Once everything was settled, I used part of my newly recovered inheritance to take a much needed vacation to the Cayman Islands. There's something ironically satisfying about using the money David tried to keep from me to relax on a beach while he sat in a cell. For the first time in forever, I could breathe. I spent my days swimming, reading, and finally processing everything that had happened. Now David's in prison, Emily's reputation is destroyed, and my relationship with my family is complicated at best. I've cut ties with my brother completely. My parents are trying to make amends, but it's hard to forgive them for choosing sides the way they did. After all, I've learned to trust my instincts and stand up for what's right, even when it means standing alone. Every day, I get stronger, and I know now that sometimes the hardest truth is better than the easiest lie. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
Mill threatened to disinherit us for not having kids. Now, she's living to regret that decision. I'm 31, have been married to my husband, 33, for 5 years now, together for 8 total. From the moment I married my husband 5 years ago, I knew my mother-in-law would be challenging. I never imagined her desperate need for grandchildren would ultimately cost her everything, not just her relationship with her son, but the chance to actually become the grandmother she so desperately wanted to be. We've had very different family dynamics. My parents were the kind of people who believed in letting their children find their own path. They supported our decisions, trusted our judgment, and most importantly, respected our boundaries. My mother-in-law? Well, she was something else entirely. That's where our story really begins. The moment my husband and I started dating, she was pushing for marriage. I still remember the first time she cornered me at a family dinner. "You know," she said, stirring her coffee with deliberate slowness, "all my friends' children are already married. It's quite embarrassing when they ask about my son." I tried to be diplomatic. "We're still young. We want to make sure the timing is right." She scoffed. "Young? You're both over 25. In my day, that was practically ancient for marriage." The moment we did get married, on our own timeline, mind you, not hers, she immediately started talking about grandchildren. It was relentless. Every visit, every phone call, every family dinner somehow circled back to when we'd be giving her a grandchild. "Did you see Mary's new grandbaby?" she'd say during Sunday dinners. "Such a blessing. She's so fulfilled now, being a grandmother." Or she'd call out of the blue, "I saw the most adorable baby clothes on sale today. Such a shame I have no one to buy them for." My father-in-law's advice? Just stay quiet and let her talk. He'd given up standing up to her years ago, telling us it wasn't worth the drama. "Dad," my husband would plead, "can't you talk to her? Make her understand?" His father would just shake his head. "You know how your mother gets. It's easier to just let her have her say." So for years, we tried to follow his example. We smiled through the constant suggestions of fertility teas, nodded through the not-so-subtle hints about our biological clocks, and tried to maintain peace. Until 2 weeks ago when I finally snapped. She was in our kitchen, going on about some herbal tea that supposedly helps with fertility. My friend Sharon swears by it. Her daughter got pregnant just 2 months after starting it. "I bought you some." "Maybe," I cut in, my patience finally exhausted. "If you're so interested in babies, you should have one yourself instead of bothering me about it." The kitchen went dead silent. She stared at me, mouth open, teabag dangling forgotten from her hand. The aftermath was predictable. She started avoiding me, only talking to my husband when she visited, which, thankfully, became less frequent. When she did speak to me, it was in clipped, cold tones. We were actually a bit worried about the inheritance implications. I know it sounds mercenary, but they're well off, and we'd put up with a lot of her behavior, partly because of that future security. We even lived in a house they'd given us as a wedding gift, unfortunately right near them. Then came the turning point. My husband received a massive promotion at his bank, the one he'd been working toward for 5 years. I'll never forget his face when he came home that day, practically vibrating with excitement. "We did it," he said, sweeping me into a hug. "No more late nights. No more stress about money. We can finally move away." We decided to host one last dinner to share our good news. But before we could announce it, my mother-in-law dropped her own bomb. I've removed you from my will, she announced, her voice sharp and cold. And your father will be doing the same. The room went silent. My husband's fork clattered against his plate. Unless, she continued, you give me a grandchild within a year. I don't even care how anymore. Adopted, surrogate, whatever. But I won't have my son be the only one in my circle without children. Even my father-in-law looked shocked. Dear, we never discussed. Because there was nothing to discuss, she snapped. But here's the beautiful irony. Her threat had lost all its power. With my husband's promotion, we didn't need their money anymore. We were free. I couldn't help but smile as I told her about my husband's promotion. Actually, we have some news of our own. Your son just became the youngest senior manager in his bank's history. The look on her face was priceless. Her successful son, who she'd always criticized for not doing enough, was now going to be in a prestigious position with people working under him, and she just threatened to disown him. She tried to backtrack immediately, plastering on a fake smile. Oh, darling, that's wonderful. You know, there's no rush about the grandchildren. I was just worried about you. Stop, my husband said quietly. His voice was shaking. Just stop. What came next was years of pent-up frustration pouring out. I'd never seen him cry before that night. Do you know what it's like? He demanded. Nothing I do is ever good enough. Every achievement has to come with criticism. Every joy has to come with pressure. I'm tired, Mom. I'm just tired. We asked them to leave. My father-in-law tried to apologize at the door. Son, I didn't know she was planning this. That's the problem, Dad. You never know, because you never ask, and you never stand up to her. Later that night, my mother-in-law called, demanding to speak to her son. He's resting, I told her firmly. And after tonight, you'll need to go through me first. How dare you, she hissed. You've poisoned him against me. You're the one who's turned him into this materialistic person who cares more about promotions than family. The texts started flowing after I hung up, a barrage of accusations. According to her, I was to blame for everything, for not marrying sooner, for not having children, for making her son materialistic. But we knew the truth. We'd stuck around out of duty and responsibility, not just for the inheritance. Then came the most beautiful twist of fate. A few days after all this drama, I was feeling unusually emotional. On a hunch, I took a pregnancy test. As I watched those two lines appear, I started laughing, a slightly hysterical, overwhelmed laugh. Honey? My husband called from the other room. Everything okay? I walked out, test in hand, still laughing. Remember how your mother said she'd give us a year to have a baby or we'd be cut off? He looked confused. Yeah? Well, I held up the test. Turns out we didn't even need a month. His eyes went wide. Are you serious? We're pregnant. Yes. He swept me up in his arms, both of us laughing and crying. After years of her pressure and manipulation, we were having a baby, just as we were cutting her out of our lives. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Of course, she tried to force her way back in. She showed up at our house unannounced, practically hysterical. You can't move away, she screamed, throwing herself between my husband and the door. I won't allow it. You're my son, Mom, he said firmly. I'm calling Dad to come get you. If you show up here again, I'm calling the police. You wouldn't dare. Try me. We're moving to a new house now, starting fresh, and preparing to welcome our child into a peaceful home, far from my mother-in-law's toxic influence. She'll never know about this grandchild she wanted so desperately. Her own actions ensured that. Sometimes the universe has a peculiar sense of justice. She could have had everything she wanted if she'd just been patient and respectful. Instead, she'll have to live with the knowledge that her controlling behavior cost her not just her son, but the grandchild she always dreamed of. Last week, I was sorting through some old photos, getting ready for the move, when I found one from our wedding day. My mother-in-law actually looked happy then, before she let her obsession with grandchildren poison everything. Do you think we're doing the right thing? I asked my husband, showing him the photo. He looked at it for a long moment. You know what I think about when I see this picture? How she spent our entire wedding reception telling everyone who would listen that we'd better give her grandchildren soon. He put the photo in the box marked storage. We're not just doing the right thing for us anymore. We're doing the right thing for our baby. He placed a hand on my still flat stomach. This little one deserves better than what I had growing up. No pressure, no constant criticism, no emotional manipulation. Just love and acceptance. I covered his hand with mine. She could have had everything she wanted if she'd just learned to let go a little. That's the thing about my mother, he said with a sad smile. She never learned that the harder you squeeze, the more slips through your fingers. We're focusing on our future now. My husband's new job, our new home, and our growing family. It's bittersweet in some ways, but mostly just sweet. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose to create, not the one you're born into. And somewhere across town, my mother-in-law is probably still complaining to her friends about her childless son, not knowing that she'll never meet the grandchild she wanted so desperately. Life has a funny way of working out sometimes, just not always the way you expect.
My brother refused to repay the $30,000 I lent him, so I took him to court without second thought. I'm 32. I still remember the desperate knock on my door that would change everything. If someone had told me then that my own brother would betray me in the worst way possible, I wouldn't have believed them. But life has a way of teaching us its harshest lessons when we least expect them. I was sitting at my kitchen table, reviewing listings for homes in the area. The housing market was hot, and with my grandmother's recent inheritance of $50,000, I was finally within reach of my dream of homeownership. My laptop screen glowed with possibilities, modest but charming 3-bedroom houses in quiet neighborhoods, the kind of place where I could see myself building a future. The knock came just as I was calculating mortgage payments. There stood James, my older brother, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by something I barely recognized: desperation. "Hey sis," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can I come in? I need to talk to you about something important." I should have seen the warning signs right there. James never came to me for anything. He was always the golden child, the successful entrepreneur who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. But that night, he looked broken. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "What's wrong? You look terrible." He collapsed into my kitchen chair, running his hands through his wet hair. "Everything's falling apart, and I don't know what to do anymore." Over the next hour, James poured out his story. His business was failing, drowning in debt and mismanagement. He was 3 months behind on his mortgage, and his credit cards were maxed out. Sarah, his wife of 12 years, was at her breaking point. She said if I can't figure this out by the end of the month, she's taking the kids and moving in with her sister, he confessed, his voice cracking. "I can't lose them, sis. I can't let my kids see their father fail like this." I thought about my niece and nephew, just 10 and 8 years old. The thought of their world being turned upside down made my heart ache. "What about mom and dad?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. James let out a bitter laugh. "They're tapped out. They've been investing in my ventures for years. This time," he shook his head, "they can't help, even if they wanted to." That's when he looked at me with those pleading eyes, the same ones he'd used when we were kids, and he wanted me to take the blame for something he'd done. "I need your help," he said quietly. "I know about Grandma's inheritance." My stomach dropped. Of course he knew. News traveled fast in our family. "I need $30,000, he blurted out. "Just for a year. I'll pay you back with interest 8%. I just need enough to catch up on the mortgage and keep the business afloat until things turn around." I stared at my laptop screen, still open to the real estate listings. My dream of homeownership seemed to flicker before my eyes. That's a lot of money, James. I was planning to use it for a down payment." "Please," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "You're my last hope. I wouldn't ask if I had any other option. Think about your nephew and niece. Think about their home, their stability." He reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "I promise I'll pay you back. Every penny, plus interest. Just help me save my family." I looked into his eyes, wet with tears, and saw my big brother, the one who had taught me to ride a bike, who had defended me from bullies in middle school. Despite our complicated relationship, despite the years of feeling second best, he was still my brother. Okay, I said finally. But we're doing this properly. We need a written agreement. James's relief was palpable. Of course, whatever you need. You're saving my life here, sis. The next day, we met at a notary's office. I had drawn up a loan agreement specifying the terms: $30,000 with 8% interest to be repaid within 1 year. As we signed the papers, James chuckled. Always the careful one, aren't you? He said, signing with a flourish. When it comes to this much money, absolutely. Looking back, I wish I'd been even more careful. The first few months were encouraging. James would call regularly with updates about how things were improving. His voice was lighter, more like his old self. The business is picking up, he'd say. We just landed a new client. Things are finally turning around. But gradually, the updates became less frequent. The tone of our conversations shifted. When I'd bring up the loan, there was always an excuse. My kid needed emergency dental work, he'd explain. Sarah's car broke down. The business had an unexpected expense. I'll catch up soon, I promise. Each excuse seemed reasonable on its own, but they started piling up. Meanwhile, his social media told a different story. I'll never forget the day I was scrolling through Facebook on my lunch break and saw his post. Finally got my dream home theater set up. 85-inch OLED TV, Dolby Atmos surround sound system, and custom leather recliners. Movie night at our place. The price tag for that setup alone had to be at least $15,000. The hits kept coming. Every weekend seemed to bring new evidence of his comfortable lifestyle. There he was at Ocean City Beach, staying at the luxury oceanfront resort, a family getaway that, according to the resort's website, cost at least $500 per night. The next month, it was pictures of his newly renovated kitchen, complete with marble countertops, a massive island, and professional-grade stainless steel appliances. The renovations had to cost at least $50,000, based on my research. What really got to me were the casual shopping sprees. Designer clothes for the kids, a new Peloton bike for Sarah, the latest iPhone pre-ordered on release day. Each purchase was like a slap in the face, knowing he still owed me money that was supposed to be for my future. By the second year, my dream of homeownership had slipped away. The market had exploded, and properties I'd once considered were now far out of reach. I was stuck in my rental, watching the prices climb higher and higher while my brother seemed to be living his best life. During a family dinner, I finally confronted him. James, we need to talk about the loan. He immediately tensed. Come on, sis, not now. We're having a nice family dinner. Then when? You keep avoiding this conversation. It's been 2 years. Things are still tight, he said, but he could meet my eyes. The business is just starting to recover. Really? I pulled out my phone and showed him his own Facebook post from the previous week, a picture of his new outdoor kitchen. Seems like some things aren't so tight. Our mother intervened then, always the peacekeeper. Now, honey, I'm sure your brother is doing his best. Families should support each other. I did support him, I snapped, to the tune of $30,000. The tension at the dinner table was thick enough to cut with a knife. James made some excuse about checking on the kids and disappeared for the rest of the evening. By the third year, I was done with the excuses. After yet another avoided call and another social media post about his family vacation to Disney World, I drove to his house unannounced. James, we need to talk about the money. Now, he didn't even look up from his computer. That was 5 years ago. Ancient history. You can't expect me to put my whole life on hold over something that happened so long ago. The casual dismissal of my sacrifice, of the trust I'd placed in him, hit me like a physical blow. Ancient history? Are you serious right now? He finally looked at me, and I didn't recognize the person I saw. There was no trace of the desperate brother who had shown up at my door that rainy night. No sign of the person who had promised to pay me back every penny. Look, he said, his voice condescending, I'm sorry if you're struggling, but I have a family to think about. I can't just. I have the signed agreement, I interrupted. It's notarized. Remember. He laughed, actually laughed.
Come on, sis.
Are you really going to go legal over this? We're family. That was the moment everything changed. I realized that to him, family was just a convenient excuse, a way to manipulate me into doing what he wanted. He had never intended to pay me back. The legal battle that followed was ugly. My lawyer was a seasoned family law expert who specialized in cases just like mine. When we first met, she laid out our strategy clearly. The notarized agreement is solid, she explained, spreading the documents across her desk. But we need to show a pattern of willful avoidance and financial capability to repay. We spent weeks building the case. I provided screenshots of every social media post showing his luxurious purchases, bank statements showing his minimal attempt at repayment, and a timeline of our communications where he acknowledged the debt but made excuses. We even obtained records of his recent home renovation loans and property improvements through public records. The court proceedings were tense. I'll never forget walking into the courtroom and seeing James there with his lawyer, dressed in an expensive suit, looking more annoyed than concerned. The hearing lasted 4 hours. James's lawyer tried every trick in the book. First, they argued the statute of limitations had expired, but my lawyer quickly pointed out that the notarized agreement's terms were still within the legal time frame. Then they claimed the money was a gift, but our text messages clearly showed otherwise. The most dramatic moment came when my lawyer presented James's social media posts, contrasting them with his claims of financial hardship. Side by side, we saw his emails to me claiming he couldn't afford to repay the loan next to his Instagram posts about his new car and fancy vacations. Your Honor, my lawyer argued, Mr. Anderson claims financial inability to repay while simultaneously spending tens of thousands on luxury items. This shows not only the capability to repay, but a willful disregard for his legal obligation to his sister. James's face turned red as the judge examined the evidence. His lawyer attempted to argue that his social media presence was necessary for his business image, but the judge wasn't buying it. The judge took off her glasses and looked directly at James. Mr. Anderson, this court takes familial financial agreements very seriously. The evidence clearly shows you have the means to repay this loan but have chosen not to. Your sister provided this money in good faith, with clear terms that you agreed to and notarized. The ruling was decisive. The judge ordered James to pay the full amount plus the agreed-upon 8% interest, along with my legal fees. She also set up a structured payment plan. He had to pay $5,000 per month until the debt was cleared, with wage garnishment if he failed to comply. The family fallout was immediate and severe. James called me the night of the ruling, his voice full of venom. Happy now?
He spat.
You've just destroyed this family over money. I hope it was worth it. Our parents were devastated. Mom called me crying, begging me to drop the lawsuit. He's your brother, she pleaded. Families should forgive each other. Forgiveness doesn't pay my rent, Mom, I replied. And it doesn't excuse what he did. Dad was more direct. I never thought you'd stoop this low. Suing your own brother? What would your grandmother think? I think Grandma would be horrified to know that her inheritance was stolen by her own grandson, I shot back. Months have passed since the ruling, and I've only received partial payment. James is dragging his feet, making minimum payments when he feels like it. The money that was supposed to help me buy a home has become a bitter reminder of betrayal. But I've learned valuable lessons from this experience. I've learned that family isn't always the safe haven it's supposed to be. That sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the deepest betrayals. And most importantly, I've learned that standing up for yourself isn't wrong, even when it means standing against family. As I watch my brother continue to live his comfortable life while making minimal efforts to repay his debt, I'm reminded that the true cost of this experience wasn't just financial. It was the loss of trust, the shattering of family bonds, and the painful realization that sometimes the people we love the most are capable of hurting us the deepest. but I'm rebuilding my life. I'm focusing on my career, saving money again, and learning to set boundaries with family. The dream of homeownership might be delayed, but it's not destroyed. And while the relationship with my brother may never be repaired, I know I did the right thing by standing up for myself. Some people say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that principles should be thicker than both. Because at the end of the day, if we don't stand up for ourselves, who will?
My best friend needed help, so I let him move in. Now, he and my wife are expecting a baby, and it's definitely not mine. I, 35M, always thought I had it all figured out. A successful career, a beautiful wife, and a best friend who'd been by my side since college. But life has a way of pulling the rug out from under you when you least expect it. This is the story of how I discovered the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. It all started when my best friend, let's call him Jay, hit a rough patch. He'd lost his job and was going through a messy divorce. Being the good friend I thought I was, I offered him our spare room until he got back on his feet. My wife, W, was hesitant at first, but eventually agreed it was the right thing to do. He's family, I argued. We can't just leave him out in the cold. You nodded, a tight smile on her face. Of course, you're right. It'll be fine. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to that smile, the way it didn't quite reach her eyes. But hindsight, as they say, is 20/20. The first few weeks were fine. Jay helped around the house, started job hunting, and seemed to be getting his life back on track. W and I continued our normal routine, though I noticed she seemed a bit more distant than usual. I chalked it up to the stress of having a house guest and didn't think much of it. Then came the night that changed everything. I came home late from work to find W practically glowing with excitement. I have amazing news, she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. I'm pregnant. For a moment, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You see, there was something I'd never told W, or anyone for that matter. Years ago, before we were married, I'd had a vasectomy. A medical scare had left me terrified of passing on potentially faulty genes, and I'd made the decision without consulting anyone. It was a secret I'd carried for years, always meaning to tell W, but never finding the right moment. I forced a smile onto my face, my mind racing. That's incredible, honey. How far along are you? About 6 weeks, she beamed, oblivious to my inner turmoil. I can't wait to tell everyone. I nodded numbly, excusing myself to the bathroom where I splashed cold water on my face. 6 weeks. Right around the time Jay had moved in. The implications were clear, but I couldn't bring myself to confront them. Not yet. Over the next few days, I watched W and Jay like a hawk, looking for any sign of impropriety. At first, I saw nothing out of the ordinary. But then I started noticing little things, lingering glances, inside jokes I wasn't privy to, the way they'd fall silent when I entered a room. One night, I pretended to go to bed early, claiming a headache. Instead, I crept downstairs and overheard a hushed conversation in the kitchen. We have to be careful, W was saying. He's starting to get suspicious. Jay's voice was low, urgent. Maybe we should tell him. It's not fair to keep this secret. No, W hissed. Not yet. We need more time. My heart pounded in my chest as I silently made my way back upstairs. They were definitely hiding something, but I needed proof. Concrete evidence I could use to confront them. So began my covert investigation. I installed hidden cameras in the common areas of the house, feeling sick to my stomach at the invasion of privacy, but desperate for the truth. I started logging their movements, noting every time they were alone together. I even went so far as to hack into W's phone, a skill I'd picked up in my IT job, but never thought I'd use for something like this. Days turned into weeks and my obsession grew. I'd barely slept, spending every free moment poring over footage and text logs. My work began to suffer, but I couldn't bring myself to care. All that mattered was uncovering the truth. Meanwhile, W's pregnancy progressed. She'd start gushing about nursery colors or baby names, and I'd have to excuse myself, unable to bear the parade. Jay, for his part, seemed to be around more and more, always ready to help with pregnancy-related tasks. It was during one of these moments that I finally caught them. I'd come home early, another headache excuse, and found them in the guest room, Jay's room. They weren't in a compromising position, but the intimacy of the scene was undeniable. W was sitting on the bed, Jay kneeling in front of her with his hand on her slightly swollen belly. "I still can't believe this is happening," Jay was saying, his voice thick with emotion. W smiled down at him, running her fingers through his hair. "I know, it's like a miracle." I stood frozen in the doorway, my presence unnoticed. A miracle. The word echoed in my head, mocking me. I wanted to burst in, to confront them then and there. But something held me back. A perverse desire to see how far they'd take this parade. So I retreated, silently making my way back to the car. I drove around aimlessly for hours, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, betrayal, grief, they all warred for dominance. But beneath it all was a cold, calculating determination. I would make them pay for this deception. Over the next month, I gathered more evidence. Secret meetings, intimate text messages, even a video of them kissing when they thought I wasn't home. All the while, I played the role of the excited expectant father, choking down bile every time W talked about our baby. Jay even had the audacity to congratulate me one night over beers. "You're gonna be a great dad, man," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "That kid is lucky to have you." I smiled tightly, raising my bottle in a mock toast. "Thanks, buddy. Couldn't do it without your support." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I decided I had enough evidence. I chose a Friday evening, knowing both W and J would be home. I'd taken the day off work, using the time to prepare my confrontation. As we sat down to dinner, the tension in the air was palpable. W kept shooting concerned glances my way, clearly sensing something was off. "Is everything okay, honey?" she asked, reaching for my hand across the table. "You've been so quiet lately." I pulled my hand away, fixing her with a cold stare. "No, everything is not okay. In fact, things are about as far from okay as they could possibly be." Jay shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "What's going on, man? You know you can talk to us about anything." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, that's rich coming from you too. Tell me, how long have you been sleeping together?" The color drained from both their faces. Boo's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Jay started to stammer out a denial. But I cut him off. "Save it. I know everything." I pulled out my phone, queuing up one of the incriminating videos. "Want to see yourselves in action?" You burst into tears. "It's not what you think. We never meant for this to happen." "Oh, really?" I spat. "You never meant to betray me? To make a fool of me in my own home?" I turned to Jay, my voice dripping with venom. "I took you in when you had nothing. And this is how you repay me?" Jay hung his head, unable to meet my gaze. "I'm so sorry, man. We fell in love. We didn't know how to tell you." "Love?" I echoed incredulously. "You call this love, sneaking around, lying to my face every day?" Reached for me, her tear-stained face pleading. "Please, let us explain. We were going to tell you, I swear. We wanted to wait until after the baby was born." And there it was, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. "That's the thing, W. There's no way that baby could be mine." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I had a vasectomy years ago." The silence that followed was deafening. E's face crumpled in confusion, then dawning realization. Jay looked like he might be sick. But how?" B stammered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I shrugged, a strange calm settling over me now that everything was out in the open. I was scared of passing on bad genes, scared of commitment, scared of a lot of things. I kept meaning to tell you, but then years passed and it never seemed like the right time. Jay stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I need some air," he muttered, stumbling towards the door. "Oh no, you don't," I growled, blocking his path. "You don't get to run away from this. We're going to sit here and hash this out like adults." What followed was hours of painful, raw conversation. Tears were shed, voices were raised, and years of pent-up emotions came pouring out. You admitted she'd always felt something was missing in our marriage, that Jay had awakened feelings in her she thought long dead. Jay confessed to feeling guilty, but claimed he couldn't fight his feelings for W. As for me, I laid it all out on the table. My fears, my insecurities, the reasons behind my secret vasectomy. It was cathartic in a way, finally unburdening myself of the weight I'd carried for so long. By the time dawn broke, we were all emotionally exhausted. No decisions had been made about the future, but at least everything was out in the open. Jay packed a bag and left, promising to give us space to figure things out. W retreated to the guest room, leaving me alone in what suddenly felt like a very empty house. In the weeks that followed, W and I tried to salvage our marriage. We went to counseling, had long, honest conversations about our wants and needs. But in the end, we both knew too much damage had been done. The trust was irreparably broken on both sides. We filed for divorce, agreeing to keep things as amicable as possible for the sake of the child W was carrying. It wasn't easy, watching her belly grow with another man's baby, but I found myself strangely at peace with the situation. In a way, my deception had paved the way for theirs. We were all culpable in this mess. As for Jay, our friendship was obviously over. Last I heard, he and W were trying to make a go of it as a couple. Part of me hopes they succeed, not for their sakes, but for the innocent child caught in the middle of all this. Me? I'm starting over. New city, new job, new perspective on life. The experience taught me a lot about honesty, about the importance of communication in relationships. It's a hard lesson, but one I needed to learn. Sometimes I wonder how things might have turned out if I'd been honest from the beginning. Would W and I have worked through our issues? Would Jay and I still be friends? But dwelling on what-ifs is a dangerous game. All I can do now is move forward, armed with the wisdom of my mistakes. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Secrets have a way of coming to light, no matter how deeply you try to bury them. The truth may hurt, but it's far less painful than living a lie. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them, so please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.
My brother and ex had an affair years ago. I exposed the truth in my wedding toast after he showed up uninvited. I'm 3'2" and just got married to Megan, my 25-year-old soulmate, last week. While the ceremony was beautiful, there was some major drama that could have been avoided. Because of what went down, my brother might be getting divorced now. Let me back up and explain why my brother Matt, 34, and I don't get along. We used to be close growing up, not best friends or anything, but normal brothers who had each other's backs despite the occasional fight. Our parents were big on family first and tried to drill those values into us. Funny how I ended up being the only one who actually took them to heart. 6 years ago, I was 26 and head over heels in love with a woman named Kim. She was everything I thought I wanted: gorgeous, smart, and seemingly perfect. But you know what they say about things that seem too good to be true. Looking back now, I can see all the red flags I ignored because I was so blinded by love. Kim thrived on drama, starting arguments over the smallest things, but I kept making excuses for her behavior. Then came the first betrayal. 6 months into our relationship, I discovered she was cheating on me with someone from her workplace. When confronted, she denied it at first but eventually broke down. "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "I never meant to hurt you. Please, give me another chance. I'll do anything to make this right." Like a fool in love, I gave her that chance when she begged for forgiveness and promised to change. I should have known better. Cheaters rarely change their spots. For a few months, things seemed better, but then that familiar feeling of something being off started creeping in again. Kim became secretive with her phone, defensive about everything. When I voiced my concerns, she turned it around on me. "You're being paranoid," she snapped. "If you've decided you're never going to trust me again, just say so. Stop wasting both our time." Finally, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her phone while she wasn't around. What I found shattered my world completely. Kim wasn't just cheating on me again, she was cheating with Matt. The two people who should have had my back had instead stuck a knife in it. When Kim caught me with her phone, all hell broke loose. "How dare you go through my private messages?" she screamed. I just held up the phone, showing her the messages I'd found. Private messages with my brother? Really? I threw the phone against the wall and walked out. Both Kim and Matt tried to contact me. "Please let me explain," Matt texted. "It's not what you think." But what was there to explain? When I told my parents, my mother tried to be understanding at first. But as time passed, she started pushing for reconciliation. "Honey, can't you see this is tearing our family apart?" she pleaded during one particularly tense conversation. "Matt is your brother. Family should stick together no matter what." Family? I laughed bitterly. Maybe someone should have reminded Matt about family when he was sleeping with my girlfriend. Life has a way of working out, though. Through therapy and time, I started healing. Then I met Megan, my complete opposite from Kim. Our relationship was peaceful, drama-free, and genuine. When we got engaged, I knew I had to introduce her to my family, even though I was worried about how it would go. Then came my wedding day. My best friend, Rick, rushed up to me, his face grim. "We got a problem," he said. "Your parents brought Matt and his wife." "They what?" I felt my blood pressure rising. "They're refusing to leave. Your mom keeps saying something about family unity." When I called my father to demand an explanation, his response was infuriating. "Stop being dramatic," he said dismissively. "It's just for a few hours. Surely you can put on a brave face for the sake of the family." I was seeing red, ready to throw them all out, when Rick came up with a better idea for payback. I ran it by Megan first. I didn't want to ruin her day, too. But my amazing wife asked me, "Are you sure about this?" squeezing my hand. "It's going to cause a scene. They brought this on themselves," I replied. "I'm done pretending everything's okay." During the toasts, I stood up, glass in hand. "I'd like to make a special toast to my brother Matt. You know, it's funny how things work out. If you hadn't slept with my girlfriend behind my back 5 years ago, I might never have met Megan. So thank you, brother, for showing me exactly what kind of person you are. And thank you, Mom and Dad, for bringing him here uninvited so I could share this lovely family story with everyone." The silence in the room was deafening. Matt's wife looked completely blindsided, her voice shaking. "Is this true?" she whispered. When he couldn't meet her eyes, she knew. She stood up, her pregnant belly visible to everyone. "I apologize for our presence here today," she said to the room before walking out. "Now my mom's bombarding both me and Megan with messages, saying I had no right to air our dirty laundry in public. She keeps making new accounts when we block her. I feel terrible that Megan's getting dragged into this. She saved me from a dark place and doesn't deserve this drama." A few days later, I got a call from Matt's wife, Amy. I hadn't even known her name before this. She was super polite, apologizing for calling out of the blue. "I know this is awkward," she began hesitantly, "but I need to hear the whole story. Matt's version, it doesn't add up anymore." We met at a quiet cafe the next day. Amy was heavily pregnant, her eyes red from crying. Megan came with me for support. "Tell me everything," Amy said. "Please, I need to know the truth." I took a deep breath and recounted the whole painful story. When I finished, Amy wiped her eyes. "He told me you were just friends with Kim," she said quietly. "That you got jealous when they started dating a year after you stopped talking to her. He made it sound like you were the unreasonable one." Classic Matt, I replied bitterly. Always twisting things to make himself look better. "You know what's worse?" Amy continued. "Your mom pressured us to come to the wedding. She kept saying we needed to be there for the baby's sake, that we needed to be a proper family again. My mother lives in a fantasy world where appearances matter more than actual relationships," I said. Amy nodded slowly. "I'm filing for divorce," she announced. "I can't raise my child with someone who could betray their own brother like that. Someone who could lie to me so easily." "We'll help you," Megan offered immediately. "Whatever you need when the baby comes." Amy broke down, crying then. "Thank you. I feel so stupid. I should have known something was wrong when he never wanted to talk about why you two didn't speak. My father called recently to let me know about the divorce, and warned me that Matt might try to contact me. He's apparently not taking it well, claiming to truly love his wife. But as harsh as it might sound, I feel no sympathy for him. He made his choices years ago when he betrayed me, and now he's facing the consequences. Mom still tries to reach out occasionally, creating new social media accounts when we block her old ones. "When are you going to let this go?" she'll message. "We're family. Think about your niece or nephew growing up without knowing their uncle." "Maybe Matt should have thought about that before betraying me," I replied to her last message. "Maybe you should have thought about that before ambushing me at my own wedding. I just wanted everyone to be together again," she wrote back. "Is that so wrong?" No. What's wrong is putting your fantasy of a perfect family above your children's actual well-being. What's wrong is forcing relationships that are broken because you care more about appearances than reality. I blocked her new account after that. Megan found me staring at the phone, lost in thought. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I sighed. "Just tired of all the drama." "Well, I have some news that might cheer you up," she smiled, taking my hand. "I was going to wait to tell you. I'm pregnant." I stared at her in shock for a moment before breaking into a huge grin. "Finally, some good news. We are our own family now." Megan tells me when I have moments of doubt about cutting ties with my parents and brother. And we're about to get bigger. She's right. It's not the happy ending my parents wanted. Their perfect family portrait is shattered beyond repair. But real life isn't about perfect family portraits. It's about honesty, trust, and facing the consequences of your actions. It's about building something genuine, even if it means letting go of toxic relationships. Matt lost everything because he couldn't be honest with me, with Amy, with himself. My parents lost their children's trust because they couldn't respect boundaries. And me? I gained a loving wife, a baby on the way, and the knowledge that I don't have to accept betrayal just because it comes from family. Sometimes the family you choose is better than the family you're born into. Sometimes the hardest decisions, like exposing painful truths at your own wedding, are the right ones. And sometimes that's all that matters. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.